Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia for part 3. There was another comment that Al-Fadi liked, and it was David Sung's comment where he said, another unintended consequence of the Quran 29:27 is that the prophethood only began after the descendant of Jacob. So this means the Muslims are wrong in saying Adam, Abel, Cain, Noah, Lot, Abraham, patriarchs before Jacob, were prophets of God. And this liar, David Sung, completely did something just as worse as Al-Fadi by inventing words into Surah 29:27. And we reminded him there is not a single letter or word which says that the prophethood only began in Surah 29:27. So they basically lied. And Al-Fadi actually liked this comment. And when I questioned him, he actually removed his like. That was pretty funny that he actually removed his like. But he did leave his comment here. Al-Fadi puts the smiley, the baby picture in the icon, the face, as you can see, like the baby looking surprised at the question. He basically liked the comment, but the comment was another lie upon the Quran. And so I raised that clear objection, and I said to him, seriously, what verses are you reading of the Quran? Nowhere in that particular verse does it say that. And then David Sung comes back, the supporter of Al-Fadi, and he says, if the office of prophethood and revelation was universal, there would be no need for the Quran to mention specifically who are eligible to sit for office. So basically he's saying, if the Quran is universal, why is it mentioning all these prophets? Well, the same reason that you claim that your biblical has, a universal Trinitarian teachings, yet it mentions all of these prophets, yet it's supposed to be a universal message for all of humankind and so forth. I mean, do you see the rubbish, nonsensical arguments these Christians are bringing? So he got refuted and debunked on this easily. Now they're just trying to shift the goalposts. Now, remember how I exposed Al-Fadi in part 1 and 2 of my videos on how he distorted the Quranic verse? So what does Al-Fadi do now? Check it out, folks. Look what he does. He now brings up a third challenge. He constantly tries to improve his arguments, right? Because earlier his arguments kept getting debunked, and he starts to try to bring new improvements to his arguments. Remember what his first argument was? His first argument here in the text, as you can see, it says, why Mo is not a prophet sent by Yahweh? He was never sent to the Israelites to call them back to the law of Moses. We showed Al-Fadi that Allah did not necessarily have to send the Prophet Muhammad to the children of Israel because he had Jesus to do that job. Al-Fadi then gets refuted on that. So then he brings another argument. And as you can see here, he tries to improve his argument because that's what he said. He actually said, watch, come back to my OP. I'm going to now give you a new challenge, right? Because the old challenge got debunked. And so his new challenge was to misquote Surah Al-Ankabut in 29:27, where it says, we gave Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and ordained among his progeny prophethood and revelation. Now, Al-Fadi thought that prophethood was only ordained in this lineage, in the lineage of Isaac and Jacob. But it doesn't say that in the verse. All it says is that there were prophets among the Isaac and Jacob tribes, progeny. That's it, period. Nothing about it is the only lineage that prophets were ordained in. And because he got refuted and exposed on his deliberate misinterpretation of the text, he then brings up third challenge, as you can see on his post. Have a look. In fact, he actually blocks another Muslim apologist of mine, whose name is Babatunda Aziz Adayob, and Al-Fadi blocks this person on the Facebook page, right? And he says he actually makes another challenge, right? And this is what his challenge says. Let's read. He says, "We will ask the babbler the following simple question. Prove to us from the Quran that Muhammad is a descendant of Abraham." So notice now his challenge continues to change. He never asked that question from the start. When he kept getting refuted on each one of his points, he keeps shifting the goalposts. And then he says, in number 2, if you can prove that Muhammad is a descendant of Abraham, then prove to us that he was a prophet from the line of Isaac. Quran 29:27. Well, we already showed that prophets don't need to be in the line of Isaac in 29:27. He then says, if you can prove that he is a legitimate prophet from the line of Isaac, then prove he is an Arab, not a Jew, since only Jews came from the line of Isaac. And he goes on. And he says, I give you 24 hours to present your case from the Quranic proof. It's interesting that he wants it from the Quranic proof, but notice he doesn't mention hadith proof or historical proof or even Christian historical proof or Jewish historical proof. Why is he saying he only wants it from the Quran? It's interesting when they want to criticize the Prophet Muhammad, they don't say, give me only the Quran. They first attack the Prophet using the hadith. But when they know that, there may be less information in the Quran, then they'll quickly come out and say, oh, look, I only want it from the Quran. Don't give me hadith, don't give me tafsir, don't give me Christian historical source, don't give me Jewish historical. But when it comes to criticizing the Prophet, hadith is the first thing they bring up. The marriage of Aisha, the age that she was married, hadith is very relevant there. Very, very, very relevant there. Now, interestingly enough, when I challenged every single one of his points, Al-Fadi actually spammed my comment. Let's have a look. So I responded to Al-Fadi, and you can see here in the screen, it says, your comment was marked as spam. Only you and Al-Fadi can see this comment. So why has this deceitful ex-Muslim, now Christian, hiding? What is the comment that he's hiding from his followers? Let's have a look. So if we go to show comment, if I click on it, here is my response to him. So let's see the comment that he intentionally removed so his followers do not see it. So his first question was, prove to us from the Quran that Muhammad is a descendant of Abraham. Response, if you read Surah Maryam 1958, the prophets are mentioned to be in a lineage. If you read Quran 2127, Abraham raises the foundation of Kabbah with Ismael. This is more proof that Ismael was among the lineage of the Arabs. Ibrahim had his son Ismail even learned the Arabic in Arabia. He was even next to the Kabbah. You can even see Al-Bukhari, volume 4, book 55, number 538. We have even Jewish historical records also testifying that Ismail was related to the Arabs. You can actually read, and I'll put all the hyperlinks below this video. It says, quote, Hagar and Ismail were saved from death and continued their journey. God blessed the boy, for he was Abraham's son. Ismail grew up into a strong man. He lived on the outskirts of the desert and became a great archer. Ismael lived his life in his own way. He married and had many children. His children multiplied and became known under the name of Ismaelites, or Arabs. Notice, or Arabs, the people of the desert. Source, and this is from the Library Articles of Jewish and Isaac Ismael, and I'll put the hyperlink below this video and you can see it for yourself. We also have a Christian scholar who also testifies the Arabs came from the lineage of Ismael. The biblical scholar Saint Jerome, 347 to 420 CE, who translated the Bible, who wrote so many commentaries, it was not easy to dissociate the Arabs from the biblical image as the sons of Ismael. He then goes on to say it was common knowledge not only amongst the Arabs but also among other nations that Arabs were the children of Ismael. Salminius Hermias Sozomenus, a historical of Christian church, also believed Arabs were the sons of Ismael. And here is the sources, and I can put the sources again below this video. Al-Fadi then says, if you can prove that Muhammad is a descendant of Abraham, then prove to us that he was a prophet from the line of Isaac. My response is, why does he have to be from the line of Isaac? Nowhere does this verse, Quran 29:27, imply it's the only line of where the prophets come from. Nowhere the Quranic verse ever states such a thing. Number 3, Al-Fadi says, if you can prove that he is a legitimate prophet from the line of Isaac, then prove that he is an Arab, not a Jew, since only Jews come from the line of Isaac. Response, again, we have shown that the line of prophets are not only conflated to the lineage of Isaac. Nowhere in the Quran 29:27 does it even state that. And then he says, Al-Fadi, he says, if you try to change the topic and babble away and try to convince us that he was an Arab from the line of Ismail, then I challenge you to show us just one verse in the Quran that says so. That's a silly question. Ismail himself doesn't need to be an Arab himself for Muhammad to be a descendant of Ismail. Why? Because we know that Ismail may have married many women, and some of those women could have had children who also married into other Arab families and so forth, and they then happen to be where obviously Prophet Muhammad would have come from. So Muhammad would still be connected through Ismail, since the seed still goes back to Ismail. And here is proof of that. This is from the Science website. It says Jews and Arabs share recent ancestry. Have a look at this. It says Cold Spring Harbor, New York, as fighting continues in the Middle East, a new genetic study shows that many Arabs and Jews are closely related. It says more than 70% of the Jewish men and half of the Arab men whose DNA was studied inherited their Y chromosomes from the same paternal ancestry who lived in the region within the last few thousand years. The result matched historical accounts that some Muslim Arabs are descended from Christians and Jews who lived in the southern Levant, a region that includes Israel and the Sinai. They were descended of a core population that lived in the area since the prehistoric times, and in a recent study of 1,371 men from around the world, geneticist Michael Hammer of the University of Arizona in Tucson found that the Y chromosome in the Middle Eastern Arabs was almost indistinguishable from that of the Jews. Intrigued by the genetic similarities between the two populations, geneticist Ariella Ofanim of Hebrew University in Jerusalem, who collaborated on the earlier study, focused on an Arab and Jewish men. Her team examined the Y chromosome of 119 Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews and 143 Israeli and Palestinian Arabs. Many of the Jewish subjects were descended from ancestors who presumably originated in the Levant but dispersed throughout the world before returning to Israel in the past few generations. Most of the Arab subjects could trace their ancestry to men who had lived in the region for centuries or longer. The Y chromosomes of many of the men had key segments of DNA that were so similar that they clustered into just 3 of many groups known as haplogroups. Other short segments of DNA called microsatellites were similar enough to reveal that the men must have had common ancestry within the past several thousand years. The study reported here at the Human Origins and Disease Conference will appear an upcoming issue of Human Genetics. So there you go, folks. We have the Prophet Muhammad, who's an Arab, even according to modern science, which tells us that his origins can even go back to the descendants of the Jews, which in case here refers to Ismael and his descendants. Refuted Al-Fadi.